This video is part of my leadership series where I am unpacking how strong school leadership actually works across 5 core domains. Tonight, I'm focusing on the personal leadership domain and examining why so many school change initiatives fail and what effective leaders do differently to make change stick. This work sits in the personal leadership domain because sustainable change always begins with the leader, how they think, what they prioritize, and how consistently they follow through. In schools, we are constantly leading change, new initiatives, new programs, and new expectations. And yet, if we're honest, many of those changes don't last. They start strong, they generate energy, and then they soon quietly fade away. When change fails, it's rarely because educators don't care. It's not about effort or commitment either. More often, it's because key leadership conditions were missing from the very beginning. Over time, across different roles and school contexts, I've noticed something consistent when change actually sticks. The same leadership conditions are always present. And when even one of those conditions is missing, the initiative struggles, no matter how strong the idea actually is. In my experience, sustainable school change depends on 4 non-negotiables. The first non-negotiable is a clear and shared purpose. Leaders must be able to articulate why a change is happening and connect it directly to student learning and student experience, not compliance and not mandates. When this purpose is missing, what you often see is surface level buy-in from teachers. Teachers may comply, but they're not committed to the initiative. The initiative becomes one more thing added to their plate instead of meaningful work. If people don't understand the why, they're never going to fully commit to the how. The second non-negotiable is alignment through systems and structures. Strong leaders don't just say something is important. They build schedules, routines, and systems to support the initiative. For example, time for collaboration, clear processes, and consistent expectations. When structures don't align, the message becomes mixed. Leaders say one thing, but the system is actually telling a different story. And that disconnect leads to frustration and burnout. What leaders protect and what they prioritize in their systems, it actually indicates what matters. The third non-negotiable is intentional adult learning. Change requires new skills, new thinking, and new practices. Strong leaders assume responsibility for building adult capacity. They don't treat change as a compliance issue. They treat it as a learning process. When capacity building is missing, educators are expected to implement practices they haven't had an opportunity to deeply understand. And that leads to resistance. And not because they are unwilling, but because they're unsupported. The fourth non-negotiable is consistent leadership follow-through. This means monitoring implementation, providing feedback, and reinforcing expectations over time. It's not about micromanaging. When follow through is missing, initiatives lose momentum. Staff receive mixed signals and trust breaks down. People will then stop believing that priorities will last, so they wait them out and think this too shall pass. Consistency is what turns a priority into a practice. When even one of those non-negotiables or conditions is missing, the outcome is very predictable. Without a shared purpose, change becomes compliance. Without aligned structures, change creates burnout. Without capacity building, change breeds frustration. Without follow-through, change fades away. Change fails not because leaders don't care, but because leadership actions don't align. Earlier in my leadership journey, I underestimated how critical clarity and consistency really were. Experience taught me that launching an initiative is the easy part. Sustaining it is the real work. Strong leadership isn't about enthusiasm. It's about discipline. Discipline in messaging, discipline in systems, and discipline in follow-through. Strong leaders don't just introduce change. They build the conditions for it to last. And when leaders get that part right, schools don't just change, they improve.